Hey, what's up, everybody? Glad to have you here. I'm super excited today. I'm here with my friend and actually my one of my online strength coaches, Bradon Hull. I've watched this. I'll say kid now because he's not really a kid anymore. But I watched him as he grew up. Watched him play football, strongman, CrossFit. He was a son of a good friend of mine, so I kind of watched him transition from being a young boy to now a man, and he's doing super well with CrossFit. I'll let him kind of tell you some of those stories, but he's been to the Granite Games. He's done strongman. He's been a varsity coach, quarterback at his high school. I mean, this guy has just he's got unbelievable talents, and he's starting to grow an unbelievable business. But I'll let him tell more about that. Let him tell about his journey so far. Bradon, go ahead and just kind of share a little bit about your experience with the health and fitness and kind of how it all started and where you are now.
Sure. What's up, guys? Yeah, so when I was in high school, right after football, my high school strength coach, he was really big into strongman. I think he made it to like nationals as a pro competitor, so he was like legit. And I mean, he kind of saw like that I took an interest in the weight room. Like I remember after school, just being in the weight room until the coaches were like, "All right, it's time to shut down. You know, Bradon, you got to get out of here," because I just really got into working out. So he kind of persuaded me into the strongman thing. And I did that for about a year, and it was so much fun. But I realized that I wasn't going to be 300-pound giant. So I kind of made the transition over to CrossFit. And that was kind of more applicable to where I was anyway, because like I was 170 pounds at the time, something like that.
I was gonna preface that by saying, you don't normally see guys at your size and strongman, and yet you were going out there, and I watched you, just kill it in some of those competitions. So yeah, so I didn't mean to interrupt you, but yeah, that definitely. Bradon is you're what, 185 now?
Yeah, I'm about 185, 190 right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so back then I think maybe like 175
That's
was my
just
highest.
a normal size guy, nothing huge. Anyway.
Right, yeah, and that's funny because like when I was in strongman, that was kind of because I was so light and quick and fast and had the football background. That was kind of my advantage,
Yeah.
because all those guys were pretty big, so I could just do things a lot faster than they could.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's funny when I went over to CrossFit, it was like now it's like all these guys are very small and aerobically fit, and now my power and my strength is the advantage.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and then again, I made the transition over to CrossFit. Been doing it ever since. I love it. I don't know if I'll ever stop doing it, maybe when I'm old and break down, but so far the journey has been great, so I plan to continue to do it.
Yeah, and you say whenever you break down, but that's kind of the background and the premise behind CrossFit is staving off the old folks home as long as possible, and that's kind of our mission. Some of us go for more of the competitive, but in the end, we're looking to make it longer and be be able to stand up and do all those things that most people do. So so now you're in CrossFit. You've been to the Granite Games twice?
Yes, correct.
Twice as a team. Correct?
Yes, both times were team of three.
Okay.
Correct.
So if anybody's not familiar with the Granite Games, it's kind of a higher level. You actually have to be invited to the Granite Games. It's not like you can go online and sign up for a local competition. It's
correct.
You have to be invited to the Granite Games, and it's a very high level. So I know you last time y'all were ninth, was it?
I think so. The first time we did it, I think we got 14th, and then the second time we got 11th.
Okay, so you're moving up a little, yeah.
Yes.
Very cool. That's still super high level, though. But tell us a little bit about, kind of what it took to get there, what the days look like, what the experience was like. Kind of give us a little bit of all that in the Granite Games.
Sure. So the first time I did the Granite Games, it was team of three, and they actually changed the division name. The first time I did it was called the Pro Division, which was awesome because we got to compete against games athletes. Like I remember when we got there, I was just blown away. we were warming up for our first event, and I got on one of the assault runners, and I was just, doing my normal warm up, and then I kind of looked over to my right, and Travis Williams was on the assault runner next to me, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is insane. Like, how am I warming up next to Travis Williams right now? And I looked to my left, and there was Nick Urankar, and then like all these other games athletes were just walking around. So that was super cool. I was so nervous at the time because it was the biggest competition I've ever done. But at the same time, like my two teammates that were with me, we had been training together for a couple of years at the time. So that was kind of played to our advantage because some of these teams, these games athletes, or not even some of the teams weren't games athletes, but they would just, randomly hook up with guys from across the country and form a team. And we actually trained together for a long time. So we kind of had that team mentality, and could work well together. So that was our advantage. We ended up getting 14th, which is, I think it was out of 40 teams. But it sounds like it was mid-pack, but it was pretty good because the first top 5 teams, they were all games athletes, like all 3 of them together. So they were just stacked. But yeah, a lot of fun, definitely the most fun comp I've ever done. And then the second year, my 2 teammates that I did it with the first year, they couldn't do it. So I just did the online qualifier for fun and hoping that maybe, some people would try to reach out, or I could reach out to some people that I didn't know and form a team. And that's exactly what happened. So I ended up doing well enough in the qualifier and got in touch with a few guys. I think they were both from Michigan. And we formed a team, met up there at Granite Games, and, just had as much fun as we could and ended up getting 11th. So
nice. That's pretty solid, especially for, somebody you don't train with all the time, especially in a team atmosphere, strategy and working together is so important. So, well, very cool. Well, that definitely sounds like that was a great experience. Now, is that something you plan on doing again this year?
I would like to. I think when Granite Games came out with a new rule book, I think they're getting away from the team of 3. So they're just doing the co-ed team now. Yeah. So actually I'm trying to get on a co-ed team for Wadapalooza because they have some like an elite division and RX division as well. So I think I could make that. We're kind of waiting to still try to get a team together. And also I'm just super busy right now with grad school, and I'm getting married in May. So just trying to finish things up, and then definitely looking to compete, in the next, year or so, as long as I can, and hopefully get on a higher level co-ed team to compete at these higher level competitions. That's the ultimate goal.
That's the goal. Well, cool. Well, good deal. I definitely love watching you. I've got to see you quite a few times compete in person, and then, also, online, and what the other one was on, was it ESPN or was the Granite Games on ESPN? I can't remember. I remember watching it, but I can't remember if it was online or if it was actually on TV.
I think it was on Flow Elite.
Okay, that's what it was.
Yeah, it was like an online thing, so you could watch it online.
Right. Very cool. Well, cool. Well, now just kind of we got your background. We kind of know you're actually getting your master's for strength and conditioning. Is that right?
The like exact term is exercise science, I think, but yes, I'm working in the strength and conditioning department at UTA. So
you do that at UTA. You were actually interning at TCU. Is that right?
That is correct.
About a year? Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
So you did all that. So you've been at a couple big colleges,
sure,
doing strength and conditioning, working with all the teams there. Who do you work with now at UTA? What teams do you
Sure. So right now I'm in charge for the programming of throwers for the track team, and then also men's and women's golf. But we only have one head strength coach there, and then 2 graduate assistants. We have 5 or 6 teams. So with our larger roster teams, which I'm not in charge of, we're all on the floor at the same time. So like when baseball comes in and softball comes in and track comes in, I'm also on the floor assisting and helping out, coaching those kids. I just don't program for them specifically. Right.
Very cool. And then of course you do online programming. You've actually set up a strength program for me, and we do it through True Coach. And then of course we text and talk and whatnot. So you do all that. And then what else do you have going on?
Sure. Right now, things are kind of up in the air. I'm looking for a job right now because I have one more semester of grad school. I would like to go, honestly, my passion's in the CrossFit realm. So I would like to, get a job at a CrossFit gym, hopefully programming for them, because that's my passion. But right now, just coaching at UTA, and then I program for a gym called CrossFit Success in Fort Worth. And then also I have about 8 to 10 online clients.
Perfect. Very cool. Well, cool. Now we're gonna transition a little bit into. I want to get more into fitness and mobility in particular, because what we're doing with the premise of this podcast is we're trying to educate, teach, and just communicate that everybody can live a fit lifestyle, even the average Joe, just the everyday person, kind of like me. So just getting out, getting mobile. So talk a little bit about fitness, mobility, CrossFit, kind of all that in one. What do you see as like a regular person? What do you see a day in their life should look like? I mean, do they have to spend in that 4 hours at the gym? Do they have to, what do you see if you're programming for a regular average Joe?
Sure. So as far as mobility goes, despite what you may hear, it is highly genetic. Some people are more mobile than others. And usually females are more mobile than males, which, we typically see all the time. So that's not hard to believe. So as far as like doing mobility, it's just going to depend on your genetics. I think you can really look, if you want to break it down at a couple things, you need to look at, the shoulders, the T-spine, the hips, and the ankles. If you can, just to like keep it all in a nutshell, if you can attack those 4 things, you will definitely get more mobile, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And I see that. I actually just tested myself yesterday on the GoWad app. I'm sure you're familiar with that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So they give you like 10 exercise or 10 mobility tests, I guess you could say, and then kind of give you a score. And it gave me the score that was right on to what I am,
Right on.
Ankle mobility's not very good, and mobility is not very good. So,
yep.
But cool. So, so if you were to give somebody like just like a 30-second tip on
Sure.
just mobility, what is it that they could do maybe daily
Sure.
to help with that mobility? Because we know mobility helps with, your lifts, with, range of motion and exercises, whatnot. Just give a quick little 30-second tip on mobility.
Absolutely. So it's like really in the CrossFit realm, we're looking at 2 big things would probably be overhead flexion. So trying to get your hand over all the way past your ear, going overhead, and then also squat depth. So really a couple things you can do to improve those. For the overhead flexion, you can try to, use soft tissue mobilizations on the pec minor, and then your lats. That will definitely open up a little bit there. And then for squat depth, you really want to address ankle mobility. So soft tissue mobilizations on the calves, and then working it through range of motion. And then also a big one that's coming back around that people are neglecting is hip internal rotation for your squat depth. I think, hip mobility was kind of big back in the day. And then we're like, no, it's the ankles. You need to look at the ankles. Now I think the hip is coming back around, and we're realizing it's both. So you really need good hip mobility and the ankle mobility too to hit your squat depth. And especially like in an overhead squat, like that's going to be your hardest. And that's when the thoracic spine comes into play, and keeping the barbell overhead. So your lat and pec tightness as well.
Yeah. So would you say, what would be like the number one way you would like, so you talk about all those, are you talking about like smashing them with a ball, or are you talking about maybe doing some of the stretches like a GoWad, like an app, like a GoWad? What's your kind of your go-to method for really all of that, I guess?
Sure. I think somebody who's starting out, if you're not familiar with Kelly Starrett, he wrote the book Supple Leopard. He just launched a new website called The Ready State. I would highly recommend that to everybody, so it's similar to like ROMWAD, except instead of just stretching, it also has like mobilizations and like releasing it with, lacrosse balls and foam rollers and using bands and stuff like that. things that we have in almost every CrossFit gym. But it's just a little better, I think, because it kind of walks you through the process of, actually getting ready to lift or post lifts. There's different variations you can do. But yeah, my go-to, I would think would be using the lacrosse ball or one of those fancy Vigorous Innovation guns on your pec minor and pec region, and then using like a stiffer foam roller on the lats and really working it side to side rather than just rolling up and down. That will help release it a lot. And then same thing on the calves, get on a foam roller, working it side to side, move that ankle, around a little bit. You kind of have some variability and freedom as far as that goes.
Yeah, very good. So you were talking about the Ready State. Is that on Instagram, or does he actually have a website? Because I do see him on Instagram quite a bit.
Sure. Yeah, it is. So he's on Instagram, but he also has a website, and it's kind of like similar to ROMWOD. You pay your monthly subscription, and then you can go on there and play around with, I think he's got like 4 different sections you can try out. But yeah, there is tons of stuff on there. Like if you're deficient in any, mobility whatsoever, you can find it on that website.
On that. Okay. Very cool. Very cool. And so the one question I had on the foam roller, do you find any advantage? So I have a foam roller, but I find that it doesn't help me get in deep like a piece of PVC. Is that kind of what you use, or do you actually use a hard foam roller?
Sure. So I use a pretty hard foam roller right now, because the same thing, like when I first started foam rolling, a few years ago, when I found out what it was, I was like, oh my gosh, this hurts so bad. And then as time went on, I'm like, I don't feel it anymore. So I got a stiffer one. Yeah. But I also think, the stiffness or the consistency of the foam roller is definitely a factor, but also how your foam rolling matters. So if you're just getting, like, let's just say you're doing your quads, you're just getting on there and rolling up and down really fast and like, all right, I feel good. You're not really, you are getting blood flow to it, but you're not really addressing the tissue stiffness or limitations. So when you go on that Ready State website, he'll kind of talk more in depth of what I'm talking about, but he uses different techniques on the foam roller versus just rolling up and down super fast. Yeah. It's very controlled. There's different techniques he uses, like he goes side to side. There's this thing called scrubbing. And when you do that, it brings a whole new ball game to what foam rolling actually is, and you will get a lot more out of it.
Yeah, a lot deeper. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna have to definitely check that out. That's the foam roller and the crossball are kind of mine, and like you said, the massage gun, all that stuff hits my areas really, really good. So you do the mobility before and after, or just before? What do you find to be more advantageous, before?
Sure. Sure. So for soft tissue mobilizations, I do that before, because again, if you have stiff tissues, you want to address, the stiffness and actually open it up. And then kind of, if I'm super stiff, I'll, do the soft tissue stuff and then work my joint through range of motion to simulate what I'm going to do for the lift that day. I don't do a lot of static stretching before. That comes in after. So static stretching, a couple sets, at least a minute, maybe longer. And then also some breathing work would probably be my number 2, or my 2 best things to do after for post lift.
Okay.
Yes.
So you foam roll before, and then you do the static stretching and breathing after. I think we've talked about the breathing before, but kind of dive into that, because a lot of people don't talk about that. And I think, especially in CrossFit, I think it's super, super important. I noticed a big difference, just for instance, in thrusters. I used to not breathe through thrusters, and I would be, I'd do like a workout like Fran, and I wouldn't breathe through my 21 thrusters, and I'd be absolutely crushed. So is that kind of what you're talking about at the end, is working on like practicing breathing, or is this something totally different?
Well, it kind of both, to answer your question. So like in CrossFit, like my philosophy, breathing is everything. Like, because we hardly ever see just like a 1 RM lift where breathing doesn't matter, because it's anaerobic. The aerobic system in CrossFit, I think, is like the number 1 thing that needs to be enhanced. And if you don't have a good aerobic system, you're just not going to do well in the sport. So with that being said, you have to be able to breathe throughout your movements. Otherwise, you're going to suffocate and you're going to, bend over, act like, you're tired and get chalk when you shouldn't. You really should just be keeping going in the workout.
Yeah.
So that is one end of the spectrum. And then as far as post-workout goes, I've been doing, listening to a lot of good coaches recently, and people in the CrossFit realm, and they're talking about post-workout breathing just to get yourself back down to like a baseline. So whenever you're working out and your system is very, to keep it simple, it's very enhanced, and that you're at a very heightened state. So we do that breathing work, and specifically nasal breathing in through the nose and out through the nose, to get yourself back down to a parasympathetic state. So it really just helps you recover, and again helps you get back down to baseline, so that if you're going to do another intense session the next day, or a few days from now, you're better recovered and ready to go back into that next session.
So what does that look like? Like a 5 minutes, like playing some music, or like calming music and just breathing, or is it just sitting in the corner? And how does yours usually, what does that look like for you?
Sure. It kind of depends on how much time you have. And again, how much time I have for post lifts. I usually like to do like 5 or 10 minutes, just working on, you can lay down on your back and do it. That would probably be a good way to start out. But then you can work like on different positions. Like one of our coaches at Conquer, which is currently who I train under, he came up with a breathing protocol, and it was 4 seconds inhale, 4-second hold, and then a 6-second exhale. I believe that was the tempo. It was all through your nose, and then you were actually doing it from a 90-90 like hip box position. So you sit on the ground like you're going to do a hip internal rotation stretch, and you just do that for, I think, 4 minutes in each position.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
I like that. I have to give that a try, depending on how much time we have.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That's always the thing, isn't it, at the end of the day? Well, cool.
Time.
Yeah, exactly. So, so we talked a little bit about, I really appreciate all those tips. That's great. We talked about your online coaching. We talked about the UTA coaching, and kind of where do you see you and your business kind of leading to in the future?
Sure. This, I'll tell you, the online coaching thing has kind of taken off in the past couple weeks or so. I picked up a few more clients, and I'm telling you, I love it right now. I would love to get more clients because I really enjoy doing it. So, but my ultimate dream job would to be coach at a CrossFit gym, and really coaching competitive athletes to try to get to some of these sanctionals or just high level competitions, all while trying to compete myself. But again, one more semester in grad school, and we'll see what happens.
Where it takes you. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, very cool. But you're definitely busy, but you have that drive. Like I said, I've watched you for years, and I know you'll do well in whatever it is you end up doing. So if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, like I said, I just started with you on the strength online coaching, which I'm really, really happy with so far. If someone wanted to get a hold of you or find out more information about that, how would they do that?
Sure. So the easiest way would probably be on Instagram, or my email. I use Twitter and Facebook, but I don't get on there very much. Instagram is my name, Bradon_Hull, BRADON_HULL. And then my email is BradonHull@outlook.com.
Cool. And all that'll be in the show notes too. But if nothing else, go and like him on Instagram, because he puts out a lot of good information, a lot of good content, a lot of good suggestions there. So Bradon, I certainly appreciate it. We had a good time here, and great information. And like I said, look forward to seeing you again, seeing you compete, whatever that may take you.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. I appreciate it, man.